This is crucial for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they look to finally beat the Boston Bruins in a Game 7 at TD Garden, finally slaying the Dragon. We have some comments from Sheldon Keefe and some other players with some insight as to why they will win this Game 7. And we might have some insight into how and why Auston Matthews got injured. All of that and more in this episode of Leafs Digest. Welcome back to Leafs Digest. My name is Darius Domingues. And before we go any further, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 84% of you watching our videos right now are not actually subscribed. So do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. And you're going to want to, because whether they win or lose this Game 7, it's going to be entertaining. The Leafs either go to the second round, which is fantastic, or there's going to be some big changes. Could be the coach, could be management. We'll have to wait and see, but hopefully they win Game 7. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Why the Leafs will win this Game 7 once and for all. I believe that they're going to do it, and it sounds like Coach Sheldon Keefe and a lot of others feel like they're going to do it as well. And besides the fact that they're hot and they've won 2 games in a row, of course, and they've looked good in those games, I do believe that they're going to win. But we'll get into the comments right away. Keefe on the Leafs in the last 2 games, they've pulled together, they fought, didn't lie down, didn't accept their fate. They changed it. They've been tremendous in terms of their work ethic. And I love that quote because he says it right there. They changed the narrative themselves. They've put in the hard work. They've started on time. They've started to do a few things differently besides the power play, which has been horrible this entire series, and they absolutely have to get under control and start converting on, or else they will be in trouble if they do make the second round. But I love this quote once again from Keefe, that they didn't accept their fate and they changed it. I love it. They didn't go down. They didn't lay down and just accept it. And they are fighting for each other, right? That's what it is. They want to keep the team together. I'm sure that they do want to keep the team together. I'm sure some Leaf fans would like the team to be blown up, and I have my own opinions on that as well. And I think that the roster construction could maybe look a little bit different, but at this point in time, they're in the playoffs. I'm rooting for this current team. I do want them to win, and I think that they want to win for each other so they can stay together and prove that this does work. So I did love that from Sheldon Keefe and the team. And Keefe went on to say as well, we didn't have any passengers tonight. Everyone was really good, and it was very noticeable. And I'll get into a few players later in the video as well, but it was very noticeable that everyone was pulling their weight and was on the same page yesterday. And obviously some players had better games than others, like Nylander and Wall, and some other players in there. Nyes had a great performance as well. But nobody was a passenger. Everyone was moving their feet. Everyone was doing what they were asked of, and everyone knew the task at hand. Charles Barkley said something on the panel last night too, that he said back when he was playing, when you're in a Game 6 or a Game 7, there is really no message at that point. It's really, you've played the same team for 6 games now. You're coming into a Game 7. You know exactly what needs to be done, so go out there and take it. It's about will and who wants it more, and the Bruins look a little bit nervous. So we'll see in Game 7. It could go either way. Game 7 is a different animal, but the last 2 games, the Bruins have come out a little nervous. And from Chris Johnson, after the Leafs went down 3-1 in the series, Sheldon Keefe says he told his team that they're going to be remembered one way or another based on what happens next. And he said to the team, so how do you want that to be and to look? Sheldon Keefe comes out sometimes, like we saw it in the Amazon documentary as well, with these speeches and stuff that just gets you wanting to run through a wall. Once in a while, he'll lay something like that on you, and this is another example of that. How do you want to be remembered? Because one way or another, through these next couple of games, you have the skill within you to get it done. How do you want to be remembered? Because you have the power to be remembered fondly and get this done. So I think that was really cool from Sheldon Keefe. I love that stuff. And we'll get into a few other performances and the temperature of not only the fan base, but the Bruins as well, which has been a big story. But this is something I totally agree with. McCabe, Lyubushkin, Benoit, and Edmondson have been absolutely crucial to getting it done at this point in the season, in the playoffs. And it's true. I think McCabe has been one of the most, one of the better Leafs for them through this playoff run. He has been fantastic. And Edmondson as well. He's doing exactly what he's come as advertised, and he's been fantastic. So love what Edmondson's been able to bring. And Benoit too, shutting it down last night against Pasternak. He was brilliant too. So they've all been crucial. And not to say Morgan Riley hasn't been, or Liljegren. they've been pretty good too. Everyone's been pretty good, especially the last two games. But these guys specifically have been great. And I thought McCabe, especially after he scored that goal early in Game 5, he has been one of the better players on the Leafs. It's funny what a goal can do for a player, right? But as well as Tavares and Nyes goes without saying, and obviously Nylander, but need to give some love to Tavares for turning into this absolute physical force on the ice through this series. He has been doing what he can to win. Oh, and he's shutting down Pasta, which is true. He's on the shutdown line that's been paired against Pasternak the entire series, really, and mostly at home because of last change. But I thought he's been great. He isn't scoring, but he's winning, I would say, 85% of his net battles in the corners, board battles. He's been coming out with the puck more times than not. He has been really good, and he has been a physical force. And again, last night, he was second on the team in hits, which goes absolutely under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. So John Tavares has been good. He just hasn't been putting up points, but he has been finding a way to assert himself into the series somehow. And that is something we've been talking about with some other players, and that has been a story with some of these players for a long time. It's been the narrative. You have to find a way to assert yourself into the series. So I love it. And then when you look at the temperature of the Bruins fan base and the Bruins team, Tyler Bertuzzi, I love this. Former Bruin says, I think everybody over there is frustrated. Well, not verbatim, but I think everybody's frustrated over there. And that's from Chris Johnson. And I have to agree. The Bruins look pretty frustrated. They didn't even have 2 shots on goal until midway through the second last night. So the Leafs, if they continue to play this well, good things will happen, and hopefully they come out with a series win. That'd be great. But to move along a little bit, the Auston Matthews injury and the timing of it all is pretty odd, and the Leafs are keeping everything very hush-hush, and I mean for good reason, because it's playoffs, right? And Keefe said it the other day, and it's no surprise. If you were to release injury information, other teams would target your players, right? And it happens all the time. They're not going to come out and openly say it, but that is a thing that they're trying to avoid, and most teams do. So they're not going to come out and say exactly what it is. But I mentioned yesterday, Emily Kaplan said too on ESPN, it seemed like it was an illness, and this is the sense from Elliot Friedman as well. It was an illness that turned into another injury, and now some fans are speculating some things. So we'll get into this, and this kind of blew up yesterday before the game as well. This has to be where Auston Matthews got hurt. He collided with Nylander and hits the back of his head on the boards. Looking back, could easily have been a concussion, meaningless game, and now we don't have him for the playoffs. Now listen, if it was a concussion in this game, the Leafs would not have played him. They wouldn't be allowed to. The doctors wouldn't allow him to play if he had a concussion. Maybe it went under the radar, but again, this is me speculating. Maybe it went under the radar, and symptoms only came up later on, which I think is less likely. But that would be the only scenario in terms of this specific game, because this was already quite a few weeks ago. If this was where it happened, which I do not believe that's where it happened. I do believe he got sick in this series. He was fine at the beginning of the series. He got sick, and then he got an injury somewhere along the line while he was sick or somewhere in there, game 3 or 4. I believe that's where that happened. But some more speculation too from game 3, I believe this was, where the tide completely turned in the Bruins' favor for a few games. And Jason says, in my opinion, Auston Matthews probably tore something in his right leg on this play. I watched his shifts after this play in game 3, and in game 4, he looked noticeably slower and had much less jump. Tons of torque on the front and inside of the right knee. MCL, LCL tear. Now listen, I'm not a doctor. All right, I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor, and I'm not sure if Jason's a doctor, and I would assume not. But anyway, he tagged a bunch of doctors, and a doctor did chime in, and he did say that it looks like he could have, I believe he said he could have sprained his MCL or something like that, but we don't know for sure, and we won't find out until the Leafs are either eliminated or the playoffs are done. So it's all speculation at this point. But what we do know, and I think for sure, if he does not play Game 7, that is how you know that this, whatever he's dealing with, is serious and holding him out of the lineup. I do believe Auston Matthews is a battler. He would want to be in these games. I believe he's being held back by the doctors. Like, if there were no rules and protocols, he probably would be playing no matter how bad it is. But unfortunately, he's not able to. And I think Game 7 will be the huge sign that it is, a really bad injury versus not. Because if it's not and something that he can play on, he might get into the lineup. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see tomorrow. But until then, Nick and I will have you posted with all the news and anything that comes out. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of stuff with Morning Skate tomorrow. An exciting Game 7 on the horizon, and we will see you then.